Hey guys, Ironfire here, and welcome to a slightly different YouTube video for this channel. Today I'm going to be taking my crack at the theory field, and I have a few images here to support my statements, so hopefully this all goes well. Today's theory is that All for One in this show isn't actually a quirk. Now, I'm going to go into it assuming like you don't know the show, but I am going to be spoiling a few mechanical things about the quirk One for All in the show. If you haven't watched it, quirks are basically superpowers. I'm going to be staying away from story spoilers, just to clarify, so none of that. But there are a few mechanical spoilers that you won't know at the beginning of the series that might make the show be a little different while watching it because you know it. So, first off, to be able to understand the mechanical things, if you aren't fully caught up with the series but you feel like you're far enough, I am taking information from the tournament and the internship arc in the second season of the show. I don't know where those land in the manga because I haven't read that, and any of you who have read the manga who are seeing this video, it's probably this theory has already been proven or debunked, probably. So, what makes me think that One for All isn't a quirk? I'm not going to be arguing that it wasn't ever a quirk. That's just a whole different thought. I'm arguing that it's not a quirk anymore, per se, and what that means for our protagonist, Deku. So, first off, why isn't it a quirk? Well, first off, from what we've seen of the previous users and current users of One for All, it doesn't connect to the people like other quirks do. For example, Kurashima's hardening seems to affect his hair to be a very spiky thing. It's part of him at this point. Bakugo's hair poofs out like an explosion, which is another thing that's connected to him. Deku and All Might both don't seem to have, their bodies don't seem to connect to this quirk quite exactly like they should. So I'm going to get into sort of a mini theory for this, for our favorite hero. Oh, yeah, wrong image. For our favorite, number one hero, All Might. And I know our favorite hero is probably somebody in the actual class, but whatever. All Might. They said from the beginning of him using his quirk, he could already do it. I'm going to argue that's because of a dormant quirk that he had that helped him sort of balance out. I don't think he's actually using One for All to its full potential. I think he's using most of it, and the rest is going to counteracting by sending that energy to his dormant quirk, which is inflation. Yes. Now, if you don't know, because I'm doing this from the perspective of someone who hasn't seen the show, whenever All Might, or I'm going to say this wrong because I haven't heard it said yet, Toshinori, uses his quirk, he inflates up to be this generic all-American hero. Whenever he's not, he's a discount General Grievous. Yeah. So, what makes me think that this is, his dormant quirk? For one, we've never seen Deku do this, which I think it would be a cool ability to have. He would want to be like his favorite hero. Plus, we haven't seen any of the previous users of All for One do this, so this must have been at least new with All Might. Now, it has been stated that One for All is a building up of energy. So it doesn't transfer the quirk from one person to the next. But what does it do when it's given to somebody who already has a quirk? Does it combine with their quirk temporarily while it's within them? Or does it just ignore the previous quirk? I would like to argue that it actually enhances the quirk. It enhances everything about the person. And at this point, it's not a quirk anymore. It's simply a power-up that somebody can transfer to the next person. think of it as an item in a game. You give the item to another player when you're done playing the game, and that item slowly builds in power the more it's used. It's an interesting way to put it. So it's just an object that's passed from one person to the next that enhances all their abilities. So now we get into the meat and bones of this theory. What does it mean for Deku? So going back to this image, we notice both of the kinds of build-up, and I know this isn't the most high-quality image, as you can see by the button that's usually this big. I had to zoom in a lot on it. Oh, I just dragged the tab. There we go. So, as we can see here, we have this red buildup and this lightning shooting around him. This is how the show shows that he's charging up One for All. Usually it's only the red one, but whenever he uses an ability called Full Cowl, it creates this lightning. So, I would like to sort of add that maybe this isn't just a visual cue for us, the viewers. Maybe this is actually happening, and whenever he charges his quirk, he actually starts to glow like this. How could we explain this in the canon? Because All Might doesn't do this. Only Deku does this. I believe this is his dormant quirk acting up. I believe anytime any user of One for All uses One for All, it activates their quirk. So, what is it then? Well, if we look at his parents, for those of you who don't know, his dad is actually very much alive and has been mentioned. His quirk allows him to occasionally breathe fire, and he is a traveling chef. That's why he's never around. He's providing for his family, though, so they seem pretty happy. It's just a little bit of stress caused by him not being present. So, the mother's quirk, as anyone who's seen the show has seen, she can pull small objects to her hand from a distance. This obviously has its own cool implications, but it's also not a very powerful quirk, as it is limited by the size of the object, probably the weight and the distance, and even pulling an object that was directly at her feet took several seconds. So we can assume that it's also fairly weak in the comparison of all the quirks we see from superheroes. Now, we have learned in the past that quirks can mutate beyond what was given to them, and even into something entirely new. I believe Deku kept this sort of weak ability, this sort of not having a lot of strength, but he created sort of a combination of the two quirks of his parents. Fire being a type of energy, and his mother's emitter quirk acting as just that, creating him being able to emit energy. Now, this really gets to the big point where I can prove it when we notice something that happens whenever he's charging One for All, for example, in the tournament arc. In the middle of the tournament arc, while he's fighting Todoroki, his sleeve rips. And this was an important breaking point for this, theory. Breaking point I'm using as makes it more viable. His sleeve ripped in this fashion. Now, All Might doesn't rip his costume whenever he uses his quirk. As you can see, this is a very skin-tight costume, so it would be, prime to just rip if this was the case for everyone. Instead, I think when his quirk activates, he's releasing all sorts of energy. He's heating up the blood inside his body to the point of where it's glowing. He's emitting electrical charges from his cells, which, yes, sometimes there's electrical energy in your cells, and he's releasing kinetic energy from his glands, making the air shoot out in a very, very fast speed. This causes the air between his arm and his sleeve to shoot out just lightning fast and rip the sleeve. This is sort of where the quirk comes to a head. The theory comes to a head. There's nothing more I can do to prove this to you. It just a lot of things are adding up here, and especially the fact that he hasn't actually activated One For All. He hasn't thrown a punch. He's just charging here, and his sleeve is ripped. All Might doesn't have that same wind blowing around him while he's just charging. He only has the wind whenever he strikes a punch. So personally, I believe Deku actually had a dormant quirk that would allow him to emit just pure energy, sending electrical waves, heating up objects, or even just blowing air in a direction. A very powerful quirk, mind you, if he somehow learned to control it. But from the looks of where the anime is going, they haven't even noticed, which is strange. Now, this also might just be a visual example for us, the viewers. That's why this is just a theory. This isn't an analysis of what's going on. This is just me questioning how this world's working. I really do hope that this actually becomes true, because this is an awesome ability, and it definitely adds to the, him becoming the best hero, because he has to have something beyond what All Might has, and clearly I don't think he'll ever train to the point of being able to release One For All 100%. So go to the comments and tell me your thoughts. I would love to make a follow-up video with more prying eyes on the show telling me why this is an even stronger, better theory, or why this is weaker. I'm still new to the theory game, and honestly, I would love to make a much stronger and more compelling idea. And if you like this kind of content, please leave a like or share this video with your friends, because the way YouTube works, the like doesn't really mean a whole lot, but if more people see it, then I'll definitely know it's working. This has been Ironfire, and I hope this theory somewhat convinced you, or at least got you thinking. Anyway, Iron out.